Tipu, Marathas looted the monastery and destroyed the idol of Mata Sharda.
When our army looted Sringeri, they even assaulted the women and some of them sacrificed their lives.
Guruji, Marathas will pay for their karma soon. This servant of yours, Tipu Badshah, will reinstall the idol of Mata Sharda, and her glory will last till sun and moon exist.
In November 2024, tensions ignited during the court-ordered survey of a 500-year-old mosque in Zambal, a town in UP. Leaders from the ruling Hindu Nationalist Party BJP alleged that the mosque was built atop the ruins of an ancient temple by the 15th century Mughal ruler Babur.
और एक क्रूर आक्रांता बाबर ने 1529 में इस मंदिर का विध्वंस किया।
This incident stirred haunting echoes of December 1991, when a Hindu bomb demolished Babri Masjid in Ayodhya, an event that changed the landscape of Indian politics forever. In the discourse in mainstream Indian media and politics, relentless narratives often paint the past Muslim rulers of the country as outsiders, invaders with foreign roots.
आतताइयों ने इस नगरी पर आक्रमण किए, इसे ध्वस्त करने के प्रयास किए।
But history doesn't bend to the will of the contemporary politics. Sometimes our past defies our logic. Sometimes the same past challenges intuition, and more often than not, it stands in stark opposition to whatever we thought we knew about the world. This picture shows a 70-year-old Aurangzeb storming the last independent bastion in the Deccan. The year is 1687 and he stands outside the Golconda fort of the Qutub Shahs with his army. Aurangzeb was 88 when death finally claimed him, and he left behind a peculiar crisis after his death. His sons, already in their 60s, were too old to sustain the empire's vigor. The once glorious Mughal dynasty was now on its deathbed. But where one empire falls, others rise. As the Mughal sun set, four new powers rose from the ashes, each one trying to claim their own piece of Hindustan. From the coastal strongholds like Madras and Kolkata came the ambitious British. In Hyderabad, the Nizams, former governors of the Mughal state, carved their own domain. The fierce Marathas flexed their muscles, moving outside from Maharashtra. While further south in Mysore, Tipu Sultan and his father Hyder Ali carved their own kingdom. The late 18th century became a deadly Game of Thrones, with alliances forming and breaking between these four powers like waves upon the shore. In 1781, Tipu and his father Hyder Ali dealt such a devastating blow to the British at Ponlilur near Kanchipuram that it would haunt the British military memory for generations.
The first time that a European army is defeated in India is this battle, Ponlilur.
Moving their careful pieces on the chessboard of Hindustan, the cunning and diplomatic British convinced the Nizam and Marathas to join them in a coalition against Tipu. And thus began the Third Anglo-Mysore War. From Madras, Lord Cornwallis deployed 19,000 sepoys of East India Company like a flood. From the north, Maratha General Parshuram Bhau's 12,000 cavalry thundered from Tasgaon, while another force of 25,000 Maratha horsemen swept down from Pune to Kurnool like a storm over the land. Loot, one of the earliest Hindustani words to enter the English language and lexicon. It was a grim testament to the art of warfare in these lands. As armies marched, they went about plundering town after town in their way, breaking their enemies' spirits with their treasuries. When Parshuram Bhau's Maratha army entered Sringeri from north, something happened that would cast a dark shadow over history. At the location of a 1,000-year-old, much-revered temple, the Maratha army committed an act so shocking that the Maratha historian G.S. Sardesai would later write with a heavy heart.
It was an affront to Hindu religion by a brother Hindu, the sad memory of which remained fresh in Maratha memory.
What follows is the tale of that fateful event at Sringeri. Before that, let's rewind to the Bharat of 8th century first, a time when Buddhism and Jainism were in their prime, challenging the very foundations of Hindu thought. In this intellectual battleground stepped a man called Jagadguru Adi Shankaracharya, who propounded the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, the concept of non-dualism, where the Jeev, the individual soul, and the ultimate reality, the Brahmin, are one and the same thing. Ideas are good, but they alone don't change the course of history always. Actions do. Shankaracharya didn't just philosophize. He traveled across mountains, through dense forests, over rivers and plains alike, at 4 sacred corners of the land of Hindustan, planted the seeds of his legacy by establishing 4 Marathas. Badrinath in the Himalayas, Dwarka along the west coast of the country in Gujarat, Jagannath Puri on the eastern shores of Odisha, and deep within the Shaidri mountains of Karnataka along the Tunga river, Sringeri. There is an interesting story behind the reason how we chose the location for Sringeri Mutt in deep forest. Legends say that as Shankaracharya passed through these tranquil lands, he saw something that shook him to the core. A cobra, a deadly predator, was shielding a helpless frog who was undergoing labor, sheltering it from the scorching sun. They say at that moment he saw dharma in its truest form, compassion beyond natural instinct. And it was here that he decided to establish the Sharda Peetham, a beacon of wisdom that would endure for centuries. For over 1,000 years since then, an unbroken lineage of 36 spiritual masters has graced the Sringeri Mutt. The Mutt rose to real prominence during the reign of mighty Vijayanagar Empire, when the empire's founders Hakka and Bukka considered the then Sringeri Shankaracharya as their spiritual guide. When Vijayanagar fell, the Vodiyars of Mysore stepped in as patrons. But here's a twist that challenges our modern presumptions. When Muslim rulers Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan overtook the Mysore throne, they didn't break this ancient tradition. Instead, they showered even more patronage on the Sringeri Mutt, just like their Hindu predecessors. You might ask, how do we know this? Well, just because the history of Sringeri was just not spoken, it was written as well, on fragile yet enduring scrolls of cloth called kadatas, dating back to Vijayanagar era. Decades ago, hundreds of such meticulously preserved manuscripts were found in the Sringeri temple, revealing an unbroken chain of events that tells the history of this sacred institution. But then came 1791. The Maratha army from the north, sweeping through Tipu's domains, arrived at Sringeri. What happened next would shake the history itself.
After the army crossed the Tungabhadra river, the Lamans and Pindaris reached Shivmoge and looted Sringeri, the Swami's village. Even the women were assaulted and raped, and some of them sacrificed their lives. The Swami's idol, the Devlinga, was also looted. An anguished Swami undertook fasts for 5 days, thereby giving up his life. When Father heard of this loot, he dispatched the cavalry to arrest the Lamans. The elephants were taken over, but the remaining stolen items were not to be found.
This was Trimbak Rao, son of Raghunath Rao Patvardhan, whom he refers to as his father in the letter. Raghunath Rao was a prominent general of Parshuram Bhau's Maratha army that made its way from Tasgaon to the north of Mysore kingdom. This letter is the first chronological reference where we get to know what happened at the Sringeri Mutt. Shri Satchidanand Bharti III was the then Jagadguru of the Sringeri Mutt, and the news of his death, as mentioned by Trimbak now in this letter, is false. Because from certain other letters we know that Swamiji actually fled from Sringeri to take refuge at a place called Karkala, about 60 kilometers away. This another source of events are the letters between Tipu Sultan and the Jagadguru Swami Shri Satchidanand Bharti himself. In a letter written just a week before the loot of the temple by Marathas, Tipu seems to be warning Swamiji about impending doom.
Swamiji, I am informing you about the enemies who have crossed the borders of our kingdom. I am punishing the armies who have transgressed the boundaries and are assaulting the people. I request you to offer prayers to Lord Ishwar for the defeat and flight of the enemies and well-being of the people.
But somewhere before the next correspondence between Tipu and Swamiji, the unspeakable horrors that Trimbak Rao mentions in his letters take place. In a letter dated July 6, 1791, Tipu responds with outrage for the events that took place.
Swamiji, I received your letter and understood that Maratha horsemen looted the mutt and pulled out and mutilated the idol of Mother Sharda, and you had to run away to take refuge in Karkala with 4 disciples. Swamiji, there is a Sanskrit adage, hasad bhih kriyate karma rudad bhiranu bhuyate, meaning the acts of foolishness committed in smiles but without any foresight one often pays the price through tears and sufferings later. I am sure the vagrants who committed such Guru Droha are bound to have their karma catching up with them soon. At once, I am dispatching an amount of 400 rahatis for the repair and restoration of the temple and reinstallation of the Vigra of Mother Sharda, whose glory should last till the sun and moon exist.
There's something special that we should notice here. An army headed by Hindus had destroyed a temple and desecrated the centuries-old Vigraha of its resident goddess. And the Swami first reaches out to a Muslim Sultan for help. But nothing about this whole story is very straightforward. Trimbak Rao clearly mentions that the looting was done by the Pindaris and Lamans of the Maratha army. So the question is, who were these Pindaris? They were not regular soldiers, but mercenary plunderers. They were found in the army of Mughals, Marathas, and even Tipu's army had a unit like that. They were different because they were not paid like the regular soldiers, but had to sustain on the loot and plunder of the enemy territory. Their sardars typically used to be predominantly Muslim, but these groups had large number of Hindu recruits too. From the letters we know that apparently the total worth of the loot that was taken from the temple was around 60 lakh rupees. It was an enormous amount of loot. To give you an idea, its value in today's currency is about 70 crore rupees. Around 10 days after the first letter mentioning the loot, Tipu writes another letter to Swamiji on July 18, 1791.
Swamiji, I have ordered the officer of Badnor to provide you with a palanquin. Please accept the gifts, grains and cash from him for reinstallation of Mother Sharda's idol. I request you to pray and perform penances to ensure the total annihilation of the enemies and welfare of the government and people of Mysore.
But here is where the story gets interesting. Even the Peshwas of Pune had highest regards towards Sringeri, and they soon realized that something indefensible has taken place at Sringeri. We know it from the letters that Nana Padhnavis, the great Maratha minister, wrote to the Peshwa Savai Madhavrao.
Swami's mutt has been looted, and so Swami is on a fast. This does not augur well for our state. However, Raghunath Dada should tell the brothers wherever he has a clue of the looters. Dada should act in a way that stern action is taken against the offenders. The Swami is consequently satisfied and his wrath disappears.
In December 1791, Nana Padhnavis directly addresses Raghunath Rao Patwardhan, whose Pindaris had been blamed for the plunder of the mutt.
The Swami's mutt was looted. Swami's displeasure does not augur well for the kingdom. Taking stern action, the Swami must be compensated and his pleasure solicited.
Throughout this turmoil, Tipu writes letter after letter to console and reassure Swamiji, convincing him to break his fast. On July 27, 1791, Tipu writes,
Swamiji, I received the prasad and phal sent by you. I am sending a sari and upper garment for Shardamba Devi and a pair of shawls for you. I would be honored if you will accept them.
Since the Pindaris of the Maratha army had taken away the elephants of the temple too, in next letter Tipu writes,
His Holiness Guruji, I was informed that the Marathas took away the elephant of Shardamba too. Hence, I am sending an elephant named Sallagisha. Please accept it. Those who committed treachery to men, women and Brahmanas will surely be suffering the Guru's curse.
Meanwhile, Raghunath Rao refused to take sole responsibility for the route. In a letter to Peshwa dated to somewhere in December, he says,
It was not merely our people who looted the mutt. The Pindaris of 4 other Sardars too had gone, including ours. We do not know why the Swami is mentioning only our name.
While Raghunath Rao denied responsibility, we know that Parshuram Bhau, the other high-rank general in the Maratha army, was pretty repentant and wanted to make amends if required. Interestingly, Tipu Sultan seems to be quite aware of these internal communications. In a letter from November 1791, Tipu seems to be directly encouraging Swamiji to demand a compensation of 60 lakhs from Parshuram Bhau. However, from all the sources that we have, we get no clear picture whether any final payment or restitution was made by Marathas to the temple. But friends, the point of this story isn't to lay blame on a particular community. It is to remind us that history is very layered and complex. Too often we tend to forget this complexity and the human side of historical figures. I urge you to dive in the work of historians who have spent years and decades studying these figures. Read, reflect, and then form your own opinions. And the story of Sringeri doesn't end here. There's a final twist to the story. From the letters we know that the same Swamiji who fled from Sringeri after Maratha attack was in Pune the very next year. Tipu wished Swamiji well for the journey in his letters and ordered his Kiledars to ensure that Swamiji is traveling comfortably. So folks, the story of Sringeri tells us that history isn't just black and white. It's full of contradictions, complexities, and it has all the moments of the best and worst of humanity that we see around us.